Hello everyone, I'm Greg Weaver. Welcome to The Audio Analyst. Today, we will examine the DS Audio Grandmaster Optical Phono Cartridge system. That's right, I said Optical Phono Cartridge. No magnets, no coils, no induction-generated signals. A mechanical transduction system that uses light to regenerate your LP's audio signal, and as a consequence, is considerably less massive, or lighter, as well. Before we get into the specifics of how this fascinating approach works, let's review how more typical phono cartridges, both the moving magnet and moving coil variety, accomplish their goals. The core of a moving magnet cartridge is comprised of a cartridge body that houses a set of stationary wire coils and a pair of minuscule, powerful permanent magnets attached to the top portion of a cantilever assembly. As the stylus affixed to the bottom end of that cantilever assembly traces the groove, the directed movement of the stylus cantilever damper system oscillates the position of those magnets in proximity to the stationary coils. That directed oscillation of the small magnets induces a current in the coils, generating the minute electric signal that your phono preamplifier uses to reconstruct the audio signal stamped into the LP's groove. The core of a moving coil cartridge uses a polar reversal of the two magnetic components of the moving magnet variety. In this instance, the cartridge body houses a set of stationary magnets with a pair of wire coils wound around permeable core formers attached to the top portion of a cantilever assembly. As the stylus affixed to the bottom end of that cantilever assembly traces the groove, the directed movement of the stylus cantilever damper system oscillates the position of those coils through the flux fields of the stationary magnets, inducing a current in the coils, generating the minute electric signal that your phono preamplifier uses to reconstruct the audio signal stamped into the LP's groove. With this new optical approach, there are two assemblies of screens, each with carefully cut coincident slits. One screen is attached to the cantilever and is free to move as the stylus traces the LP groove, while the second is fixed to the cartridge body and is immediately in front of a pair of photosensitive receptors. In essence, optical cartridges reconstruct the music signal by registering and interpreting shadow changes, differences in brightness, as the amount of light reaching the photosensitive detectors varies. As that first screen oscillates at the cantilever's direction, the amount of light that is able to pass through the second coincident slit in the secondary screen and reach the photosensor varies. It is this directed variation in the brightness of the light falling on the sensor that creates the varying voltage used to generate the audio signal. The idea of the optical phono cartridge is not exactly new. It was first conceptualized over 80 years ago when Philco introduced the beam of light record player in the 1940s. Now, not only did it use a mirrored surface and an incandescent light bulb to vary the amount of light reaching a photocell as the stylus moved, it also implemented a much lighter sapphire stylus as well. Toshiba revisited this scheme in the 1970s with its 15-gram C100P optical cartridge, which also used a small filament incandescent lamp as its light source. But it took DS Audio's founder, Tetsuaki Aoyagi, or Aki for short, to steer this technology to its current remarkable state, delivering such incomparable results. There is now an entire stable of third-generation DS Audio optical cartridges, ranging from the new entry-level E3 system to the flagship Grandmaster EX. The Grandmaster system under review here is one tier down from the Grandmaster EX and has been optimized by implementing independent LED and photodetector arrays for each left and right channel. As a result, the cartridge's output has seen significant increase from about 40 millivolts to over 70 millivolts, offering a greatly improved signal-to-noise ratio when compared to its lesser stablemates, resulting in an even lower noise floor and enhanced musical clarity. The implementation of the independent left and right channel LEDs also allows for more precise positioning of the optical system and necessitated the use of a new shading plate. The original design, fabricated from aluminum, was now too massive, so a new version, made of 99.9% pure beryllium, allows for both a significant reduction in size and mass. The Grandmaster cartridge also features the use of an Orbre-sourced diamond cantilever, fitted with a micro-ridge stylus, providing the advantages of an all-diamond assembly rather than using one with disparate materials like aluminum or boron. This more highly integrated assembly is mounted in an updated cartridge body, specifically designed for enhanced rigidity. It also uses new internal wiring, some 1.6 times thicker than that used in the second generation cartridges, providing a further reduction in internal impedance. Now, if you're wondering how those varying shadows are used to generate the voltage needed to turn the signal into music, you will likely not be surprised to learn that the typical RIAA phono preamplifier is of no use in this instance. Instead, DS Audio makes a matching power supply and equalizer module to go with their cartridges, and the Grandmaster is no exception. The power unit is in its own chassis, weighing some 66 pounds. The equalizer, in its separate chassis, weighs some 48 pounds, and both chassis are just shy of 18 inches wide, just under 6 inches tall, and just over 19 inches deep. Yes, I get it. They are large and massive. But I'm here to assure you, the extra space and weight are well worth what you get in return. Now, they are said to employ 2.34 million microfarads and 2.97 million microfarads of electrolytic capacitance by the equalizer and power supply units, respectively, which is said to deliver significant improvement in the development of the deepest, most defined low-frequency response. The Grandmaster equalizer uses special film capacitors custom-built to DS Audio specifications and non-inductive wire-wound resistors. Add to that, 3 separate transformers are used, one each for the left and right channels, with the third handling the power supply to the optical cartridge. And each has a capacity 1.5 times greater than that offered for the DS Master 1 system. The Grandmaster equalizer offers a set of single-ended inputs and 3 sets each, single-ended and balanced outputs, providing for a total of 6 optional low-frequency cutoff points, 3 at 30 Hz and 3 at 50 Hz, each of them differing only in its applied cutoff frequency and slope. The 2 chassis are connected by 3 massive umbilicals, 2 with 7-pin Ampnol type circular threaded connectors for each left and right DC input to the equalizer, and 1 similar 5-pin connection to power the cartridge body. 2 different lengths are provided, one set roughly 20 inches in length, the second roughly 35 inches in length, to accommodate connectivity on your rack or stand. I used the shorter set as I had the 2 chassis sitting one above the other on my equipment rack. Repeated warnings are provided in the instructions to not disconnect these cables for at least 5 minutes after powering down the system. Given the enormous capacitance they employ, you must allow the supply circuit time to safely discharge. I spoke with Garth Lehrer of Musical Surroundings, the U.S. importer for DS Audio products, to initiate the review of the Grandmaster Optical Phono Cartridge system, and while I had expected to be impressed, I must admit that I was not prepared for what a revelatory experience the installation of the DS Audio Grandmaster would bring. After installing and aligning the Grandmaster system and cartridge, within moments after the first needle drop, I was frankly stunned by the immediately apparent increase in overall transparency, bass speed, and precision of both sound staging cues and imaging specificity in terms of location, size, and solidity. My reference cartridge is the remarkable Etsuro Gold, a superbly crafted, exquisitely executed transducer that also uses a full diamond cantilever assembly and a specially polished microline diamond stylus. Among the reasons I had settled on it as my reference were its astonishing abilities to present the most pitch-defined, fastest bass I had ever experienced, and its superb ability to unravel complex passages and present individual voices or instruments, especially those recorded en masse, with a specificity and sense of body that was unmatched by any other cartridge in my experience. But this, it simply sent chills down my spine, creating an immediate sense of horripilation that took minutes to wear off. The first thing to hit home was its absurdly quiet presentation, revealing a vanishingly low noise floor, one as close to pure silence as I've yet encountered. This system presents with a starkly quiet presence, allowing sounds to emerge from a much darker background than that generated from any electromagnetic induction-based phono cartridge system in my experience. Building on that supremely black, virtually inaudible backdrop, this system's ability to recreate microdynamic detail and nuance was breathtaking. I was simply transfixed with how fluently it was able to reconstruct delicate treble detail, rendering it with such engaging finesse as well as spatial and textural authority. As an example, listen to the subtle flavorings of the fixed, delicate, and precisely revealed location of the faintly struck triangle buried deeply stage right, house left, in the Steely Dan track Asia from their sophisticated jazz rock masterpiece release of the same name. And talk about the ability to dig deep down into information encroaching on the level of the recording's noise floor. Revisiting Fade to Black from Dire Straits' sixth and final studio release, 1991's On Every Street. Mark Knopfler's subtle, guttural, beneath-his-breath growl at some 27-odd seconds into the opening, a phonation that typically eludes discernment, or certainly this level of delineation and articulation, has never been more expressly or distinctly exposed. Listening to complex classical passages, like the veritable cacophony of orchestration during the opening of Prokofiev's Scythian Suite, is a revelation, as the individuality of instrumentation is so cleanly portrayed, with acoustic and staging cues reconstructed with near-perfect focus. The Grandmaster system's combination of tonal purity, textural competency, and broadband clarity imbue it with the ability to distinctly portray the differences between the direct, precise, almost bell-like tonal characteristics of a Stradivari constructed violin versus the darker, deeper richness of tone one hears from an instrument crafted by House Guarneri. These attributes aren't just apparent with well-recorded classical pressings. They allow for a clearer sonic view into the playback of every genre of music I played, from the progressive metal works of Tool, Dream Theater, or Queensryche, through the scope of female singer-songwriters like Tori Amos, Beth Hart, or Ricky Lee Jones, from guitar mavens like Robin Ford, Joe Satriani, or Jeff Beck, to the likes of blues legends like Muddy Waters, B.B. King, or Stevie Ray Vaughan. This system shows no favor or preference for any type of material I fed it. This remarkable system's consistently elevated performance, with its supremely synergistic combination of extension at both extremes, its unparalleled speed, microdynamic expressiveness, and significantly refined broadband resolution. Allow it to recreate the sounds carved into our LPs with a greater degree of musical fidelity, with an ability to create a more holistic and complete sonic envelope, one that simply outperforms any other cartridge phono-stage combination in my experience. The synergy of all the DS Audio Grandmaster System's individual gifts endow it with the ability to expose the fastest, most pitch-defined bass, especially as you descend into the subsonic regions, the most inclusive articulation and definition of musical detail, and the most remarkably open and transparent view into recordings I've ever experienced. The result is musical recreation with an overwhelmingly closer approximation to live, one well beyond that offered by any other system in my experience. Quite simply, it establishes a new benchmark for the recovery and reconstruction of the music captured in your LP's groove in my experience, and by some considerable margin. Why is this novel approach capable of delivering such exceptional performance? My first thoughts go to the obvious, the inherent deftness of this system, given its dramatically lowered moving mass. The entire assembly weighs just 7.7 grams, and with that lower moving mass comes significant reduction of inertial-based complications as well, allowing for fleeter starting and stopping, less opposition to vectorial change, as well as a diminished latency for energy storage and release after any drive signal has been removed. Then, too, the magnets and coils traditional cartridges use generate magnetic resistance to the movement of the stylus, faintly impeding tracking, hindering and deterring sudden changes in motion, contributing to the blurring of fine detail and reducing overall resolution. Because this optical system uses no magnetics, there are no fields of resistance to impede or oppose the stylus's ability to move or react. One final factor to consider here is that, again, sans the magnetic assembly required by the typical cartridge assembly, the optical approach completely sidesteps the common and often overlooked interaction of eddy currents. A metal sheet moving through any magnetic field induces circular electric currents proportional to the rate of change of flux, which, in this specific case, is determined by the velocity of the rotating turntable platter. And as there are no magnets in the Grandmaster's cartridge, this effect is alleviated, again, permitting the assembly freer movement and faster response capability. Now, I've maintained that this is an overlooked added sonic advantage inherent with turntables using non-ferrous materials such as glass or acrylic for their platters. The sound delivered by the DS Audio Grandmaster system brings with it a true revelation. This transduction system delivers the most resolute, transparent, precise, and engaging LP playback experience ever delivered by any phono cartridge system at any price in my 5+ decades of enjoying records. From the deep tranquility imparted by its suppressed noise floor, through its starkly candid and genuine revelation of tone, timbre, and texture, through its dizzyingly fast transient capabilities, to its remarkably subtle and persuasive presentation of resolution and transparency, the DS Audio Grandmaster cartridge, Energizer, and Equalizer have forever reset my expectations and established a new and remarkable level of reality from LP playback. Now that I'm retired, I must balance and weigh my purchases very carefully. But I assure you, as soon as the realities of my finances allow, either the Grandmaster or the Grandmaster EX system will assume residency in my reference system. As always, thank you for taking the time to drop by today. Further information on supporting the channel may be found in today's description section or at my website, theaudioanalyst.com. Please stay safe and keep the music playing. Till next time, cheers.